Hi, I'm Logan Medish, your host of the High Caliber History Podcast, and today I'm here at the Lewis and Grant Auctions in Newport, Kentucky, and I have the honor of having with me Jack Lewis. And Jack Lewis is one of the foremost firearms experts, period. Let's just say that. Jack has spent his life studying antique arms. He is a second generation in this business. His son is third generation. And I think it's no exaggeration to say that Jack has probably forgotten more information than I will ever know in my lifetime. So it is an absolute pleasure. Jack, thank you for taking some time to come on the show today.
You're most welcome. It's good to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So if you're second generation, obviously that means your dad started in the arms industry. How did he get started?
My father started, he got involved with the Ohio gun collectors. He was the executive chef at the Arms Hotel in the early 50s, about 51, 52 to be exact, and the Ohio gun collectors would hold their monthly meetings there, and so he, being interested in firearms, got interested and joined the Ohio gun collectors, and he's been a collector and a dealer ever since. In 1959, he opened up Jack's Gun Store in Norwood, and he maintained that until 1983 when he sold that, and then he started another company called Fort Shawnee, and it basically was a gun shop, and he had his repair shop, his gunsmithing stuff set up there, and he was there from 1983 to this day. He's 91 years old, and if you were to stop up there near Portsmouth and knock on the door, you would find him across the street in his gun shop working.
How about that? Well, gunsmithing keeps you young, I guess, right?
It does. It does. Keeps him working.
There you go. So then how did you get into it? Was it just kind of an osmosis?
As a kid, my father collected Winchesters. Okay. And by 1968, he had close to almost 400 levers.
Wow.
And in 1968, when the Gun Control Act was being considered and it eventually passed, there was an extra bill in there that would have taxed a collector based on the size and value of their collection.
Really? He
panicked. He sold his guns, and actually the bill went down to the midnight hour. It came very close to passing.
No.
And it's just another angle. And you know, if you think about it, and if you do collect firearms and you have a sizable collection, it can dip into your pockets on a yearly basis. So
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then how did you get started?
I always loved the Winchesters. I was charged with the task of making sure none of them got rusted, and I'd take them off the wall, and I had a cloth that I had to wipe the blue with, and then a wax to put on the wood. But I never had forgotten that. And when I came home from Vietnam, I was married. We had 2 children, and I needed some employment to work. And so I was doing 2 things. I worked for the city of Cincinnati, and then I worked in my father's gun shop in the evenings and traveled to gun shows. And it not only helped me with my family, it also helped me build an extensive collection of Springfield arms.
Okay.
And which is something that's my love, is from 1795 to 1900. So.
Okay. Very cool. So then when did you turn this into a full-time profession for you?
Well, I retired from the city in 2000. And Kathy and I traveled around to gun shows for about 5 or 6 years. And then I started writing descriptions and evaluating arms for another auction company.
Okay.
And last year, Bill and I came together, and we started our own auction company.
Lewis and Grant Auctions.
So.
Yeah, that's great. So what has changed the most, do you think, in the collecting world from when you started to where we're at now?
Well, when I started, Texas Patterson Colt was, or a Walker Colt, or a Winchester 1 of 1,000, which they still are, the blue chips of collecting. Younger people have turned to more like items from World War I, World War II, prototype military rifles, all the different handguns, and that seems to be the more popular thing today. And it's affordable. It's something someone can seek out the best of and step up to the plate and pay the price and walk away with a good piece. And, you know, interests have changed. There was an old collector named Jonathan Peck that was from Hartford, Connecticut, and he'd always teased that the collecting of firearms was trendy.
Okay. So where do you see things going in the future?
Oh, good Lord. Back to the gyro jets, maybe, you know. and that's not a joke, because I know of a person that owns a development company and develops arms for the United States military. And we were teasing about that, because they still are pursuing that theory to see how they can make it work.
Really?
You know, and but, you know, today it's more high tech. It's much lighter weight, and what's really, I'm a Vietnam veteran, and about 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to test fire the Army's new LMG, light machine gun, which replaces the M60. Well, until you've carried an M60 in the rice paddies of Vietnam, and you've had belts around your neck, and you can feel how it weighs you down in the mud, this new LMG was unbelievable gun. Then I also had the pleasure of test firing the Army's new sniping rifle that is issued to a sharpshooter in each platoon of infantry. In the particular gun, what I did was I basically, at 100 yards, I had a 6 o'clock hold on it because it had a scope on it, of which I didn't set for my eye. Most people have to understand, scope has to be set for your eye.
Right.
You know, if it's set for you, it's going to be a little different when I go to shoot it, and it's going to spray a little different on the target. So basically, I asked the guy, and he told me, and I said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to hold 6 o'clock at the bottom of the black, and I said, I'll just shoot for group. And to my astonishment, at 100 yards, I had 10 shots that you could cover with a $50.
No.
And the most amazing thing was I did it in about 25 seconds.
Wow.
I mean, you were right back on it, because the gun itself takes all the recoil out, and it was suppressed, so you don't hear the noise as much,
Right.
and you just fall right back in the groove.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. So you said you collect early American stuff, 1795 on. You know,
Correct.
you could pick anything, right? You could
Right.
pick early American, you could pick Civil War, you could pick Winchesters, Colts. What made you choose early American?
The Springfields is quite a challenge in the sense of doing research. You have to read not only textbooks, there's some great textbooks out there. You really got to get involved in ordnance notes.
Okay.
And you need to read the ordnance notes. Not so much about the experimentation of the weapon, how many were made each year, and the different variations that applied to the use, and the changes they made is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
That's when you go from type 1 to type 2.
exactly.
Stuff like that.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
is there a grail gun of sorts in that early era?
I had one in my collection. It's now part of the collection at Fort Belvoir, Virginia, in the Army's museum. It was a 1795 with the brazed bayonet. That is the 1 of 1,000, the Walker Colt of the 1795 Springfields.
Okay.
And then second to that would be a good early dated 1799, where the eagle points toward the butt, and the lock plate will not be dated, but the top of the butt plate, it's dated 1799.
Okay. So those are the
Those are two of the, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Very cool. And you've had both?
I've had both.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where do you go from there, right?
Yeah. Well, I've settled on the trapdoors, and mostly the officers' models, the sporting rifles. Sporting rifles is something where an officer would write Springfield and say, I want a 45 caliber rifle. I want it to have a 26-inch barrel. I want it fine-sighted. So fine-sighted in those days would be a tang sight, a front folding beach. And then whatever he wanted, if he wanted it checkered, if he wanted the lock plate engraved, or if he wanted a special Metcalf attachment to carry a cartridge block, they would do that. And so by 1875, Springfield was bombarded by these officers writing in and requesting these arms. They made a standard officer's rifle.
Okay.
But even after 1875, from 1875 to about 1882, there were a few special orders that were granted. There was an officer's rifle where the guy wanted a marksman type stock, had a fatter pistol grip.
Okay.
And you know, it was built and sent to the officer. So
cool. So yeah, so with so much officer specificity in the orders, that really makes for a wide collecting field of stuff. It's almost like an unending search, right?
Absolutely.
That's cool. And that's what the collecting's all about. It's the fun of the hunt, you know.
Sure.
And that's, you know, this is my last gun until the next one. You know, it's more expensive than drugs, I think.
There were 477 officers' rifles made, 317 by name that ordered them. And there's probably, within those 477, there's about 3 major variations.
Okay.
And it's basically sights and the wrist. That's pretty much it, but they were all 45-70s. The earliest ones is flat in the back, where the later ones are rounded at the breech.
Okay.
Yeah, the barrel, and the what is it called? The pinion, or in the back. But anyway, it's fun, it's interesting, and I think the research and the reading on the pieces is what keeps you running.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, because there's always new material coming out. You know,
Absolutely.
Just when you think someone has put out the seminal work on something, more paperwork comes up and gets discovered, and
you bet.
You know, and that's the beauty of it, is that it's always evolving.
You bet. So.
Now, you've spent some time with Antiques Roadshow, right?
Not Antique Roadshow. I did a collectible show for Discovery Channel, which was like the Antique Roadshow. It was a show where they would bring pieces in, and we would basically look the piece over and appraise it for them.
Okay.
I forgot 9 episodes, I think. Yeah.
Okay. I imagine trying to do something like that for TV in front of the cameras is quite different than the normal back and forth.
It has its advantages, because to someone that's not very well known or hasn't traveled the circuit of the gun shows and know a lot of people, it's a way to get your image out. And basically, most people don't realize that when you're on the road show, you pay all expenses. Nothing's paid for by them, and that's not a paycheck.
Ah. Well, I learned something new today.
Yeah. So you basically do it for the notoriety.
Gotcha.
Get your face before the camera, if you're lucky enough to get a good piece that'll go before the camera.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's interesting, because I've seen lots of things pop up on there that I'd just roll my eyes. My wife would look at me and say, "Is it worth that much?" And I'd just roll my eyes and say, "Find a buyer."
Right. Yeah. Something's only worth what someone's going to pay for it.
I do like how they will show the value of it 10 years ago versus the value of today, because market has changed.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what's cool. One of the things they do, because I follow them on Instagram, and in their stories, when they're getting ready to do one of those retro episodes where they're showing the price changes, they'll have a poll in there, and you can vote. You'll be like, "Oh, do you think it's up? Do you think it's the same? Do you think it's down?" And sometimes I'll do the polls, and then I'll watch it that night and, you know, see how close I got.
Good point.
You know,
yeah.
Which is kind of cool to have that involvement, to keep you on the ball with changing trends in the market.
To really stay up on the appraisal prices today, you've got a good advantage with the computer and being able to, with the search engines, of searching what pieces bring at auctions. And not necessarily does it mean that this piece that's sold for a lot of money, the next one out's going to do it.
Right.
You know, so you never know.
Yeah, it just depends. You know, you get that one piece. If you've got 2 guys that you know get into a pissing contest and gotta have it, right?
Gotta have it.
You know,
That's right.
So, if someone were a new collector and they were going to start collecting today, what would be your biggest piece of advice to them?
The biggest advice to them today would be to understand and learn conditions.
Okay.
And learning conditions came to me very early on because I watched my father in his shop. I knew what it took to refinish a gun. I knew what it took to blue a gun, and then to recondition a stock and so on like that. And it's very difficult for a restorer to make it look like the factory made it look then. And training your eye for that, that is all part of it. And then to go along with that is reading the textbooks, knowing what you're looking at, and knowing what you're going to be buying.
Sure.
And a lot of times it's not so much what the piece is worth, it's the value of it to you in that empty space you have in your collection.
Right.
And a lot of people today don't understand that when you are walking through a show, sometimes you can be looking at the piece and you might never see that gun again for 25, 30 years. So what is its value at that time? Do you want to take that 30-year search out, all of that gas in your car and staying at hotels to try to find that piece?
Right.
Take all of that into the equation, but
Sure.
know what you're looking at really well, and you'll do okay. You'll do fine. Yeah.
Is there anything in particular, pitfalls that folks should really look out for,
Only in really valuable things, the old saying that if it's too good to be true, then it's not. And it's kind of like I was jogging one day and my barber knew that I was really big in guns, and I would jog by his shop. And he had a person in there that thought they had a real Walker Colt. Okay. So they stopped me, and I went in, and the guy said he would bring it the next day. And I told him then, I said, it's probably too good to be true.
Right.
And he brought it in, and it was. It was a reproduction that someone had thrown in the horse manure pile and aged the hell out of it, and then brought it back out to try to pass it on for a real piece, And it's just, again, it's knowing the piece that you're after. Knowing conditions is the two major things in collecting. But it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of rewards. And the thing is, it's the stuff that you go after. I'll never forget one day I had a person bring me a Bowie knife.
Okay.
And I asked the guy real quick, I said, what possessed you to put down $50 for this Bowie knife? He was at a yard sale not very far from this building. And he said, it was the prettiest hunting knife I ever saw. The knife got him $16,000. It was a great Wade & Butcher Bowie knife, and it was in fantastic condition. Wow. So things like that can happen. You never know, but it's always best to have it checked out by an expert and then go from there.
Right. Buy the gun, not the story.
Yep, exactly.
Now, you had kind of essentially retired before the Lewis and Grant thing came along. So what?
Very true. Very true.
What was so special about this new partnership that made you say, you know what? I've done this my whole life. I retired. I'm coming out of retirement because I got to be a part of this.
Well, mainly because of my son.
Okay.
Billy became unemployed, and another person that works for us here that's a very fine gentleman and very good person. I wanted to see them be successful, so why not pass this on to two people and Grant Wendling that can carry this into the next millennium, and they can do this. And we're all working together now. It's fun. And we do our research daily. You've been here for a few days. You've seen us in action, and you saw how the fun we do have, and we enjoy it. So it's not a job,
right?
And there's no pressure on us, and we're going to be fine, and we'll do good. And people's going to come because they know me,
right? And
they're going to get the same trustworthy. That they've always gotten, and you're only as good as your word. And my father always said that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting. You mentioned you doing this for your son and for these other couple gentlemen. That's, obviously your son is family, but these other couple gentlemen, it's one thing that I've found in the gun collecting community is that we are one big family.
We are. We share knowledge, we
Yes.
pass it on, and that's the camaraderie of it. And it's, like if I'm walking through a show and I'll see a silver-mounted dagger that I think a buddy of mine, Mike Zomber, might like, I'm going to tell him where it's at, and he'll go over, and next thing you know, hey, Jack, I owe you a steak.
There you go.
Same way with me. Michael did one for me one day, and what he did was he sent me an email at home, and he said, what is this monster? Well, this monster was a Springfield breech-loading shotgun, trapdoor shotgun, and on the lock plate, it was engraved like an officer's rifle, and in a banner, it had the initials FRB. Well, in 1874, Freeman R. Bull ordered a Springfield sporting shotgun. There was only one, and that was it. And it's a unique gun. He found this in a decorative arts internet sale, immediately brought it to my attention because he knew I liked those particular things. And it was a great find, and there's an article going to be about the gun in Man at Arms in the April-May issue.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, the internet has really changed the whole dynamic of how the auction business works, hasn't it?
Yeah, the search engines really cut a search down very quick. And there are those that across this great country of ours will do a search every morning on particular things. And boy, if it pops up, then they launch on it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it
cuts down the travel, cuts down the hotel expenses, yeah.
Right. Yeah, like you said, so yeah, it cuts down on your travel expenses, but it's also a big boom for the auction house because they're able to reach people that, otherwise wouldn't be able to travel to the facility and come to the auction, so you can get people literally all over the world bidding on
we
stuff.
did a sale last May, and I was very skeptical because I'm old school and I'm not up on I am up on the use of the computers, but the power of it is still not unplugged. So normally, if we did an auction and the low estimate would be 1.4 and the high estimate would be 1.8. If we achieved in between there, I was always happy and smiling. I did my thing and I did it right. This particular sale had a new tool called Zoom.
Okay.
And the thing was, it went through the roof. It went above the high estimate. And is it because people were sitting at home?
Right.
And they couldn't get out? Is it because, this new tool made it available to a lot of people? Who knows? But it worked. And it was a winner that day. And it's a winner for everyone going forward. So
absolutely. Yeah. Now, this upcoming sale that you guys have in May of this year, obviously there's some fantastic Winchesters and stuff in here. Tell us a little bit about this big collection that's coming up in May.
The best thing in this collection is that there are 7 world-class guns that just for the condition are tops and just hard to beat. This particular piece is a rosewood cased Nimsky engraved 1866 rifle that was built for the King of Spain to present to his ambassador to America and Mexico, Guillermo Crespo. The gun is absolutely brand new.
Wow.
It's phenomenal condition. And next to it is a 73 Winchester that is nickel and gold and engraved. And it was built for the, the Connecticut State Foot Guard. And it was presented to them. And I understand at that presentation in 1881, there was like, I don't know how many, but there were several Civil War generals that were very famous that were in the audience when this gun was presented to the Connecticut Foot Guard.
Oh, wow.
Then you also have on the table here, you have a Briggs patent Henry rifle that was actually given to the Briggs family by Oliver Winchester.
That's a big deal.
Second, we have a gilt engraved Henry rifle with blue finish. And a gilt gun is very seldom found with a lot of blue on it. There's some of the silver-plated guns out there that are phenomenal condition, but the gilt and blue is a rare commodity, and very seldom has one come up for sale. In fact, one person told me he's never seen one.
Oh,
the only one he's seen was the Lincoln Henry that's at the Smithsonian.
Yeah.
That's gilt and blued. And then you have a deep relief engraved 66 carbine here that was built for the Sultan of Turkey. Next to that is an engraved 66 rifle that is just phenomenal condition. Next to that's a 76 Deluxe that features gilt on the frame, $7.50 worth of engraving, and blued finish on the barrel magazine tube, and an octagon round full mag. Very unusual. Next to that is a 97 shotgun with extra barrel that's blued and gilt. Then you have a number 186 engraved gold inlaid Winchester. This particular gun was built by Winchester in January of 1897, and it is the model gun for the highly finished arms catalog that was presented in 1897. Next to that, you have a number 1 engraved gold and platinum inlaid 94 that was made in 1897. It is an antique. Next to that is a 401 self-loader that was built for Prince George, who later became King George.
Oh, wow.
Down below that is a number 195 Winchester that's gold and platinum engraved. And then this particular sale has got quite a few 22s that are engraved, gold inlaid, and all the way down to the little boys' rifles that are just bolt action 22s and in phenomenal condition. Then the auction turns to basically 1795 up through the Craig rifle, and then there is a great collection. Probably, I've been told, we will probably have the best armor and rapiers for sale in this auction that has happened in well over 80 to 100 years.
Wow, truly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
You bet. There's some unbelievable rapiers out there. There are some great pieces. So the sale is really got a lot of good things in it and should bring a lot of people and interest a lot of different collectors.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's stuff here. You know, aside from the armor being a once-in-a-lifetime thing, you know, there's stuff that people have only seen in museums. And, you know, I go back to the Sultan of Turkey piece here, and, you know, the companion piece to that gun, if you will, you know, is in the Metropolitan Museum, you know. So
the Sultan of Turkey Dragoon.
Yeah, so we have true museum class guns here.
These two here are world-class guns. They are the best for condition, for engraved that anyone can see. They've always been, these two have always been iconic pieces. The leather case 73 was in the collection of Richard Prosser Mellon. The rosewood case 66 was in the collection of Clay Bedford, who was world-renowned for his collecting of European arms and armor, and he was also the civil engineer that helped build Hoover Dam.
Wow. Very cool. A lot of esteemed collectors through the ages sitting here in this upcoming sale.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And one man was responsible for putting this collection together for a family, and it took over 40-some years. He put together quite a group of lever actions for him.
Wow.
So,
fantastic. And now the collecting community gets to enjoy it all over again.
get to enjoy it all over again. Yeah,
and that's what it's all about, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing how the May sale does. I know it's going to do great. I mean, you guys have a fantastic operation here, and your stuff is second to none. And you guys have been fantastic to me, and I'm really enjoying working with you. And so I see nothing but fantastic stuff in y'all's future. It's just there's nowhere to go but up, right?
That's right. Yeah, you bet.
Awesome. Well, Jack Lewis, thank you so much for coming out of the High Caliber History Podcast. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to join us here.
My pleasure.